Welcome to the SquarePizza podcast. So this is a podcast about making the things that are good about school even better. This is your host, Greg Schermbeck, and this is actually the very first SquarePizza podcast episode. And so in this episode, you'll just get an introduction to myself, to Kelsey on our team, to the work of SchermCo, and to the vision of the podcast. And so take it easy on us. This was our first one. But we're excited to introduce you to what we hope will be a really exciting project for us and something that will continue for a long time. Let us know what you think. Thanks, guys. All right. Hey, Kelsey.
Hey, Greg.
How are you?
I'm fantastic.
Thanks for joining. Hello, everybody out there. So this is the first official teaser / introduction to new material, also known as introduction to the podcast that we're starting. Kelsey, why are we starting this podcast?
Well, we wanted to create a podcast that was a platform for innovative and effective ideas on education.
You guys tell that Kelsey's reading off the script. So introductions, and then I guess why, guys. So my name's Greg Schermbeck. Have previously been a teacher, but still now in education, and fortunate to run an organization that we're calling SchermCo. And we've been around for 5 years, but essentially we exist to offer strategic services and implementation services to schools, foundations, and districts and nonprofits across the country that are really working on behalf of serving kids and families in communities that need it the most. We do projects that I think to most people look like strategic planning or project management, but we like to think we have a bend towards innovation, towards implementation, and how to really help partners think about what's best for kids and families now, but also what the future of education looks like. And so that's me. I'm going to stop talking. Kelsey, tell us about you.
My name is Kelsey Van Dyke. I don't have a strong background in teaching. I spent a year in Spain teaching English, and that's when I decided that being in front of a classroom was not going to be for me, but I wanted to be involved in...
But not fluent in Spanish.
But not fluent in Spanish.
Okay, just want to check.
This isn't the space to check in on that. Maybe in a future episode.
Sure.
We can tackle that one.
Can't wait.
But from that, I knew I wanted to be involved in education somehow, but not as a teacher. So went on kind of a winding path, but found myself in grad school for innovation and education. And then about 2 months ago, you welcomed me to the SchermCo team to help lead a project and family partnership. And I've been loving it.
It's nice of you to say.
Yeah.
In public and to all of our new followers now and listeners. Kelsey is officially our director of programs, solely focused right now on, as you mentioned, what we think is an innovative project between a district and a charter school, but also a building collaboration for them to rethink what family engagement and family empowerment looks like. And she's been knocking it out of the park. Kelsey is, I think she said 2 months old, which is probably right, give or take, 45, 50 days old. In the organization, but feels like she's been on the team for a long time and is doing a great job. So we are 2/7 of the SchermCo team we have here. And so there will be a number of our staff members and team members on and hosting the podcast, but this podcast is really more about the education community, both locally in Charlotte, across the state of North Carolina, nationally and even internationally. And so we're biased because we do this work on a day-to-day basis. But the podcast is much bigger than our selves, our organization, much bigger than Kelsey and I and the team, but really focused on kind of creating a platform for offering solutions, insights, and strategies that we're learning on a day-to-day basis, but also best practices from these practitioners, from these school leaders, and from these foundations from across the country. And so we think that we're doing something innovative here with the podcast and hoping to get as many innovative and fun people on the podcast as well to help kind of create this platform to share it with all of our listeners and followers.
Yeah, I think one of the first innovative things we want to do is kind of crowdsource our name. So we have a couple of ideas for a podcast title, but we're going to throw some polls up on social media and have you guys vote on our official title. So coming soon.
I think that's right. It's one part innovative and maybe one part in desperation, but I think if we're being transparent, maybe will be a good way to build community, and it can be a community name as much as our name as well. And guys, to be frank, like, it's pretty hard to name a podcast. A lot of like names to throw out to make sure you're not plagiarizing or copying off another one. So we're going to put the pressure on the community at the same time.
Yeah, and we want to be fun and funny and relevant too. So
We're going to try.
It's an added piece of the puzzle that makes it hard.
Kelsey's job is to be funny, and my job is to find other people that are funny on the podcast at the same time.
Yeah,
So we're on it. Great. So let's talk about, I think, just some of the visions that we have real quick for the podcast, and then we're going to wrap this first session. So yeah, we will have a title at some point. It will have something to do with artwork, with education, with communities, with innovation, with impact, all those buzzwords thrown together, but mean something to us. And so be on the lookout for this official poll to help us choose our title. Second, we think we have a good personality, or at least an engaging personality across the organization. And one of our core values is being fun and enjoyable to work with. And so we hope that we'll do our best for that to come through during our podcast sessions, but also think that as important as education is, we all have to come to this work through humility, and it will humble you. And if not, 30 high school kids, when you're trying to teach them, will humble you as well. And so we hope this at least brings another lens to the work that's important for us, and hopefully important for our partners in the communities we're serving. I think we're really going to try to cover a lot of themes, because there's no one silver bullet in education, nor can it be kind of isolated to one thing, right? And so you're going to hear us talk about equity. You're going to hear us talk about race, social impact, the inequality gap, and the wealth gap, because all these things we believe, and many of you believe, are strictly tied to K-12 education, are tied to how schools are funded, how neighborhoods are zoned, and the larger connection point at the same time. And so be on the lookout for those as well. And I think probably most importantly is this really will be interview based. We want to talk to stakeholders. We want to talk to, biasly people we worked with, people we haven't worked with, but really just folks at various levels of education who are thinking deeply about rethinking education, thinking deeply about serving communities, again, both locally and across the country. What'd I miss? What else is the vision for the podcast, Kelsey?
Well, we're always going to end with an action step.
Yes. Why are we going to do that, do you think?
Why?
Yeah.
Because we want to offer solutions, and nothing's going to change without solutions.
Yeah, I think so. And right, like, we also have a pretty serious focus internally in our organization, but also with the partners we support around implementation and action steps. I think we've all seen in education really good theories, really good ideas, but by the time it gets down to the practitioners or the stakeholders, it's not, maybe they're not supported, or the system's not supported to actually implement it well. And by the time it actually gets in front of or close to kids and families, it usually has pretty minimal impact. And so we think a lot in our organization about action steps and testing ideas, and certainly going to encourage our followers and our stakeholders to do the same as well.
It's one of the reasons I was drawn to this organization.
Perfect. Hopefully we'll keep you around with some action steps and implementing some stuff.
As long as I'm funny, I guess.
Yeah, good luck. So a few action steps as we kind of wrap, guys. Selfishly, follow us on social media. So we try our best to put out, content or documenting what we're doing, documenting how we're supporting our partners, but also great work across the education field. So we are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Those 4.
Yep.
All at SchermCo. SCH, don't forget the C. Again, SCHERM. CO, Kelsey's going to start a TikTok account for us pretty soon, and so be on the lookout for that.
Quality content
right.
coming there.
Mm-hmm. What other action steps we got, Kelsey?
Yeah, well, I mentioned earlier that we are looking for those crowdsourced podcast titles, so we'll be posting that soon, so we're going to want you to interact with that and submit your own. And then also, where this is going to be interview-based, so we want you to submit who you'd like us to interview, and some focus areas of who you or what you want us to discuss in the future. So if you want to tag a couple people you want us to interview and some focus areas about what you want to learn more or a topic that you want us to discuss, please do that at SchermCo.
Yeah, that's right. Get us on social media. Tag us with some folks and leave comments about topics related to education, related to social impact, related to equity, related to race, all these factors that are focused and kind of fall under the umbrella of education that you'd like us to tackle. This podcast, these tools, these resources are only going to be as relevant as our ability to, one, communicate them to our stakeholders and our followers, but also to have a two-way communication from us to you and vice versa. And so we are genuinely looking forward to that feedback and that interaction with our followers and with our partners. What else we got?
More to do.
It's going to be our unofficial tagline pretty soon. Or maybe copyright it.
You're supposed to, that's like a call and
It's
response.
like a call and response.
More to do.
Funny story. And so for those that don't know, we often end our social media posts with the saying more to do, more to come, because we think there's a lot more to do. Will always be more to do in education. And as long as we're around, there's going to be more news.
Hey guys, this is Greg. Thanks again for checking out the podcast episode. Feel free to show us some love on social media. So Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, at SchermCo, SCHERMCO, and hashtag SquarePizzaPod. Would love to see your reviews and connect with you there.
Screenshot it and send it to him.
Stay in touch for the next episode.
Fired him.
See? It's catching on.
But then I sent him a Venmo request for $2.99, and he hasn't paid it yet.
Okay.
So we're going to trademark it. But yes, we think there's more to do and more to come. We're excited to engage with you and keep listening. Stay tuned. Keep listening for more as we roll out the first official podcast. Bye, guys.
Bye.